Welcome to everyone in Facebook land and to all of those of you who have come. The neat thing about this topic is that it covers basically all relationships in our lives, even though we are specifically talking about dating. There are still things that you are going to learn about parenting and about all the people in your life on every level. And so it's going to be really fun. I feel like it's important to talk about this topic because I often talk about the red flags of relationships, and then I scare everyone to death about ever getting in a relationship again. And just so you know that not everybody is those weird, creepy people. And I remember someone reading my blog, and they're like, I'm never going to date. I give up. I'm like, no, that's not the point. And so the previous presentation I gave was called The Red Flags of Toxic Relationships. So today we're going to go from the point that we've already figured out they're not creeps, but just because they're not creeps doesn't mean they're for you. So now you're going to have to wade through the normal people and see which ones are going to be the best relationships, where you're going to be both making each other happy and having this loving, fulfilling relationship. So after my divorce, about 6+ years ago, I was kind of flabbergasted by the whole experience, and I'd been through some pretty big trials in my life, but I had to think this was the biggest one. Kind of floored me, and so I wondered if everyone else in the church had the same kind of experiences of divorce once in the LDS community. And so I put together a survey, and it had like a gazillion questions. And I covered about every aspect, how are your home teachers? How are your visiting teachers? What did your bishop do that was really helpful? And what could he have done better? And how could the word have supported you better? And basically it was trying to get information so that we could get better support for those going through divorce in the church. One of the things that I found that was interesting, because I remember when I was growing up getting this little pamphlet about marriage, and it stated in there that the number one cause of divorce was money. So fighting over finances and stuff. So that's why I was so surprised when I went through and found that in the LDS community that things have shifted a little bit in the last 20 years. And so the question was, how are we at choosing mates in the LDS community? Are you dying of suspense? Well, these are the statistics I came up with in my study. There was about 1,000 people who took the survey. The number one cause of divorce was abuse. Now, abuse comes in all different levels and kinds, whether it's psychological, emotional, sexual, physical abuse. Studies have shown that it doesn't matter what kind of abuse, the results are the same. Whether you have a bruise to show for it or not, there is the same kind of damage done long-term to a person who's been through abuse. And so that was kind of shocking to me. And then it goes on down to more than 50% infidelity. Then we have a high level of addictions, personality disorders, and then finances was like number 5. So things have changed a lot in the last 20 years or so. So what are we doing wrong, okay? What have we done that has made it so that we have gotten ourselves into these situations? Now, you and I remember when we were young, we watched Cinderella, and the fairy godmother came and made her in a beautiful dress, and Prince Charming came on his white horse, and we thought that was the same thing as a return missionary. They went on a mission. The guys, she's got her medallion, she's for me, and so done deal, happily ever after. And so we had these ideas in our head of what it was supposed to look like and how it was going to turn out. It was going to be happily ever after and straight to the celestial kingdom. And we're finding that hasn't been the case. And so now it's time to figure out how to do it better the next time. I still think this needs to be taught to youth so that they do it right the first time. And but if the adults don't know, then how are the kids going to know? So once you learn this, you can go home and teach your teenagers. So the first thing we need to do is to find ourselves. Now that we've gone through all this disastrous, painful whatever it was that we went through in our previous relationships, we need to get ourselves past that, healed. We need to figure out what happened. And that was one of the things that I did when I came out of my divorce was, it was so disastrous, and I had no idea how I got there. And most of the time when you go through an experience in life and you go through, hindsight, you're like, oh, well, I won't do that again. But I came out of this and I'm like, I don't know what I did wrong. How am I supposed to not do it again if I don't know what I did in the first place? How did I miss all the flags? And how did I not know what I was getting into? So what happened here? And so that's when I started to study these topics so that I would make sure not to make the same mistake twice. Because how many times have you heard of these people who marry the same person over and over and over again and keep finding themselves in the same situation? So the first thing we have to do is to look introspectively and to learn what mistakes we made and what things we overlooked. And the one of the really big things that we find ourselves in the church is unhealthy boundaries. We are taught to give and give and give and to lose yourself in the service of others. And sometimes we don't realize that doesn't mean that you completely lose your boundaries of what's appropriate and healthy for you and for everyone in your life. So developing healthy boundaries has not been something that we've been really good at. People just, we've got this sign on us that says, come and get it. Whatever's mine is yours, and I'm just going to kill myself for you, and I'm not going to take care of me. And, so we've got a bunch of people running around with with these unhealthy boundaries. We have those people who don't have the protective boundaries around themselves. And then we have the other ones who don't understand that other people have boundaries that they shouldn't be trespassing on. So we have the exploiters, and we have the ones who end up being abused because they're linking up with these exploiters. We've got the givers and the takers, and they're getting together, and then it ends up being a disaster. So healthy boundaries. The first signs that you're not in healthy boundaries is that you are feeling overloaded, unappreciated, overlooked. You're like frazzled all the time, and you're depressed, and anxiety, and everything feels out of control, and you have a lot of resentment. That's a sign that your boundaries are not healthy. That means everybody is walking all over you. And I can see all these lights going on over your head like, oh my gosh, that's me. And this is how we get ourselves into these places where we just feel like we are the servant of everyone. And so I love this quote. It says, in the physical world, boundaries are easy to see. Fences, signs, walls, moats. I want a moat. Moats with alligators, manicured lawns, or hedges are all physical boundaries. In their differing appearances, they give the same message. This is where my property begins. The owner of the property is legally responsible for what happens on their property. Non-owners are not responsible for the property. So I have some neighbors I'd like to give this to. Like, you don't need to worry about what's going on in my property because it's not your property. Your property is your property. So see, I told you, this is going to go everywhere, even your neighbors. So that's the thing. You drive by people's houses, you know exactly where their boundaries are because you can tell from their yard where their yard begins and where the neighbors begins. And so we need to have a fence. And sometimes we have to let people know what that fence is. And the hardest thing is when you haven't been doing it and all of a sudden you do it. That's always really fun for people. But it helps you to find out who your true friends are. So the first thing you need to do is become alert. You need to remember that always, always trust your gut instincts. If you feel something's wrong, it usually is. And the problem is, if you have been in an abusive situation in the past, you have learned not to trust anything you do or say because it's going to be wrong, right? You have been told over and over again that you always choose the wrong clothes, and that's a dumb idea. And, so you stop trusting yourself. You become indecisive because you think everything you do is going to be wrong. And so pretty soon when your gut is telling you something, you're ignoring it because someone else isn't telling you. And you can only trust other people. So the most important thing is to gain that back, to learn to instinctively trust that gut instinct, and to give that back to yourself. Because givers have to set limits because takers never do. One of the things that is hard to learn is what is me and what is not me. Boundaries define us. They define what is me and what is not me. A boundary shows me where I end and someone else begins, leading me to a sense of ownership. And so this is really hard, especially when we're in a parent position, because when our children are young, we're kind of like chickens with our hens. We've got our little chickies under our wings, and we are responsible for them. They are inside of our boundaries. We are responsible for teaching them and training them and making sure that they become responsible adults. And when they become adults, sometimes we want to continue to keep them under our wing and tell them what to do and tell them what to think and we want to continue controlling that relationship that is outside of our boundaries, and that is stepping over their boundaries. When we become adults, we have to become like a lighthouse on a rock and become an example. If they come to us and ask for advice, then we can give it, but we can't expect them to follow it. We just are the example sitting on a rock like a lighthouse. So our roles change in different parts of our lives. And so the important part is learning our boundaries and their boundaries. The worst thing we can do is to rush in and solve all their problems, because that is stepping out of our boundaries. They have to have their problems they fix, and we fix our problems. So the number one thing I would suggest you getting is that book called Boundaries by Cloud and Townsend. It is a Christian book, and it is excellent. It covers all aspects of developing healthy boundaries for yourself. So I highly recommend you getting that book. In the scriptures, Christ showed us the example of setting boundaries. He says, I stand at the door and knock. Behold, I stand at the door and knock, and if any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come in to them and will sup with him and he with me. Now, he's not saying, I'm going to bang your door down until you let me in, and I'm going to force my stuff on you, and I'm going to make you do what I want. He has always been about agency. He knocks, and we have to open the door, and that is an example of healthy boundaries. The interesting thing is, once we start joining the healthy boundary family, we'll become better at recognizing other people who also have healthy boundaries. And so when you're dating, you will naturally notice unhealthy boundary keepers and not allow them into your life. And so as we find our tastes changing from boundary-muddied relationships to more clearly defined people, we begin developing close and meaningful connections with people who have clear boundaries. We begin either growing in boundaries in our present relationships or finding new attachments in which to invest, or both. So that is an amazing thing. It can be painful because you might be letting go of some of the relationships that are just not working for you or that are bringing you down. It's also very freeing when they are like weights or anchors on your progression and through life. This is a very important word. Someone gave me this little button, and it was no, and it was all the different ways that a person could say no. So they said, anytime, because you have a problem with this, so anytime someone calls you asking you for advice or asking, I have some of your money, or they just said, just push this button, and it says, no. 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 And it has all these different, and I just loved it. And I'm just sitting there, push it all day. No, entertain myself. I'm like, oh, I've got to get better at saying no. And so this is part of our establishing boundaries. Go home and practice. All the way home when you're driving, say no to yourself. Just practice it, because it's so hard sometimes, that little tiny word, just getting it out of your mouth. So first things first, and you need to understand why this is important. When people are treated as objects for long enough, they see themselves as someone else's property. They don't value self-stewardship because they relate to themselves the way significant others have related to them. At that point, they place little value taking care of the feelings, talents, thoughts, attitudes, behavior, body, and resources God entrusted to them. And so when you think about it, what this is saying is that they give up. They don't continue in their talents. They don't give up. They don't continue in their hobbies. They don't continue developing themselves because they don't feel like their life's important. I'm just a robot for everyone else's needs. I'm just everyone else's doormat, and I'm here to make sure everybody else's dreams come true except mine. And so that's a sad thing. I remember being in that same place myself. When you start seeing your worth, you'll find it harder to stay around people who don't. And that will feel amazing. So we have the red lights and the green lights. We will not be putting up with lying, not being genuine, dishonesty, people with no empathy or who are controlling, isolating, jealousy, and and these are all symptoms of improper boundaries. We're just not going to do it because it's not comfortable for us. When we have that lack of self-esteem, that seems normal to us. This is the way everybody treats me. This is the way I deserve to be treated. And this is the way my next relationship is going to treat me. So not going to do that anymore. A healthy person with boundaries takes responsibility for their actions, makes you want to be a better person. So ask yourself, does this person make me want to be a better person? Are they genuine? Are they the same with everybody? Or they put on a different show for every person they're with, like a chameleon? Do they have empathy? Tell them lots of stories and see if they are crying at the right places or if they look bored. Do they feel your needs? Because a lot of times they're all about their own needs. So you want to make sure that because you're a giving person that they are also giving back. It's not a one-sided relationship. So we have 4 beliefs that we must have to attract true love. You need to believe you are worthy of unconditional love. You need to believe in yourself. You need to believe in finding the right partner. And you need to believe that that relationship can last. If you have this thing in your mind that you're doomed from the start and it's probably not going to work out because the last one didn't work out, it's not going to work out. So you have to believe that it's possible for you to be in a lasting relationship and that you deserve this. So find our soulmate. We get to play detective. True compatibility consists of 3 dimensions: chemistry, complementarity, comparability. The soulmate you need is a person with whom you have a rich chemistry, whose differences make you better, and who shares many of your personality qualities and lifestyle preferences. So we're going to break that up into all of those different aspects, and we're going to talk about it. But the number one thing to know is that it takes time. You're not going to figure this out over a week or 2. So none of this rushing into relationships and think, oh, I found my soulmate, and we talked all night, and it was wonderful, let's get married. None of that. Time reveals patterns, provides the opportunities to observe the person in various situations and relationship contexts, and allows you to safely move deeper in open communication and transparency. Now, this is another book I highly recommend you getting, and it's called How to Avoid Falling in Love with a Jerk by John Van Epp, PhD. It's a fantastic book. It goes through a lot of the red flags. It goes through a lot of the green lights that we're talking about today. So, and this one I got off the Eternal Bible of Facebook. You can tell a lot about a person by how they handle 3 things: a rainy day, lost luggage, and tangled Christmas lights. I'm kind of thinking the tangled Christmas lights is the biggest one. Like, let's have a date and putting up Christmas lights so we know whether we have a second date. That, I don't know, that might be just driving someone crazy. That's just not even nice, is it? So let's talk about the crucial test of complementary. What does that mean? Do you find that you become a better person by being with your partner than without? Because if not, then it's not complementary. What we're looking for is 2 people who are better together. Not one who's amazing who pulls down the other person because they're jealous or whatever. It's 2 people who, when they're together, they're both better people. So complementary. Just like complementary colors on the color wheel. There's 3 colors there that when you put them together, they really make each other pop. And there's other colors where you put them together and it's just a total clash. So do your partner's strengths empower or devour you? Do you feel admired and appreciated for the ways that you are different from your partner? Or do you feel criticized and put down? How are you and your partner different? Not that different is bad, it can be good. How do your differences benefit you? How do they benefit your partner? What things upset you about your partner? Do you feel criticized or put down by your partner? What do you respect about your partner and not respect? So the hardest part about dating is that there's this thing that gets in the way, and it's called your heart. So what I'm trying to teach you today is how to use your brain and your heart. If you totally choose a partner with your brain, you're still going to get it wrong. It has to have both. So while that heart is engaging, while you're falling in love and the whole attraction thing and everything, you have got to still be able to look at things prospectively. You've got to be able to use your brain. Okay, none of this shutting it off stuff. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So essential similarities. There are certain things in your life that kind of need to be on the same page. There's a lot of things where you can, he does that and she does that, and that's okay. But there's certain things you kind of need to be on the same page about. Like personalities, values, lifestyle. Certain personalities are just not going to get along. And can you imagine two talkative people being married to each other? And they're exactly the same, but who's going to listen, right? So there's certain things that you've got to have in your personality. Certain personalities are just mean and nasty. Who wants to be married to that? So personality is important. Your values. If you have completely different values, this is going to be an area of contention and friction. Your lifestyles, if you're completely different, used to different things, it's going to be a problem. Personality, okay, let's look at this. Are they warm and cold? Are they rigid or flexible? Are they optimistic or pessimistic? Are they moody or steady, loud or quiet, dramatic or bland, nurturing or distant, easygoing or a doer, emotional or emotionless? A lot of these are like, there's a nice happy medium somewhere, because these are like extremes. Energetic or docile, active or couch potato, patient or impatient. They tell everything or they don't tell anything. So what kind of personalities are we dealing with here? Values. What are their values in raising children? One of them likes to spank and the other one doesn't. That's going to be an issue. I saw a couple get divorced over just that. How religious are they? Are you in the same religion? Moral, ethical, political. Are they patriotic? Are they, what are you similar on your monetary ideals? And are you kind of come from the same place? One is like, I want to spend it all on me, and the other one's like, I want to give it to the poor. That's going to be a problem. Social, family, there's so many areas in these that are important, that are going to need to be discussed and discovered. So one of the things, Leslie, would you pass those out? One of the things that I would like you to do, I have homework for you. And those of you at home, I am going to put this on the Facebook group so that you can download it and copy it off. And I got a lot of these ideas from the Jerk book. The first thing that you can do, if you are falling for someone and you're not sure, you're just not quite sure, am I just falling in love with them and not using my head? So this is one of the things you can do, okay? You have a pros and a cons section. You sit down and you write down all of the characteristics that are the pros, all the things that you love about them, okay? And then you go down the next section, all the things that kind of annoy you, all right? So then write down a number in how important is that to you? Like Is it really important, or is it just kind of a little bit of annoying, or it's really great that they're this, or it's, it's nice. So put that number there. And then as you put the numbers next to you, this is just an example that I made up. Then you do the math, okay? Add them up on both sides and see whether the cons have a higher number than the pros for you, okay? And then that could kind of tell you. I remember going through this process when we were looking at job offers out of college. And we kind of went through the pros and the cons and trying to decide which might be the best offer. And so if there's ever a time that we should be doing this kind of homework, it's when we're looking at relationships, because that's kind of important. Kind of goes on for a long time. It has more to do with life and happiness than even getting a job. I'm going to talk about opposites attraction. Now, you hear this all the time about opposites attracting, and it can be good and it can be bad. But one of the things that I want to show you, opposite is okay as long as you're somewhere in the middle, okay? So if you're extremely clean and he or she is extremely a slob, that might be a problem, okay? But if one is, pretty good, loves to organize and that kind of thing, and they could use a little help with that, but they're not bad, you're probably going to get along okay, because you can help each other out. One will complement the other, and you'll learn from them and stuff like that. So it depends on how extremely opposite that you are. So that's why I put this chart on your homework, so you can kind of put, line up some of the traits that you might have that you're extreme in, and some of the traits that they have that they're extreme in. And there's ideas like controlling versus submissive, positive versus negative, hardworking versus lazy, always serious versus always goofing off, shark versus fish, outgoing versus shy, organized versus disorganized, sense of humor versus serious all the time, good at finances versus not. Really important to you how you look, your outfits and stuff, and he's colorblind, so just saying that there are things where you can help each other, and then there's things where you're just going to be fighting over it. So opposites are good as long as it's to a degree, all right? So let's talk about relational information. Relational knowledge results from how you are treated in your relationship, and is one of the most powerful influences in your relationship, choices. The problem is if you have been in abusive or neglectful or anyway, poor relationships growing up, then you might not recognize when you're not being treated well, because that's what you're used to. So that's why we have to get ourselves healthy, so that when we are being treated poorly, we know that that's absolutely not acceptable behavior. So you could be dating someone who treats his or her parents with contempt but makes you feel more loved than ever. Be careful. This person may do a 180-degree turn after you tie the knot. Situational information often has a stronger predictive power than what you experience in the relational domain. So what I remember hearing this one talk, and I can't remember the guy who taught it, but it was really a great example. And it was talking about men and how they are hunters. And so when they see the woman that they want, they get out their guns and I am going to get her. And they pull out the charm and the good looking and the cologne, and they are going to hunt her until they get her. And so that's the thing. If they're really a creep, during that hunting process, they're amazing. And they put on the big flamboyant dates, and they just come across as so charming and so interested in you, and it can be very deceptive. And so what you watch for is this relational thing. How do they relationship with other people? Because what they're doing to everyone else is what they're going to do to you when they're not hunting you anymore. So usually what happens is after they tie the knot, then they switch their focus to something else. And you're not being hunted anymore, because they got you. Now they're going to go after money or something else. So you need to be seeing, how do they treat their sister or their brother, or how do they treat their mom or dad? How do they treat other people at the restaurant? How do they treat the plumber? This is the information you need to be gathering. The important thing here is that we don't settle or justify. So if you're dating someone, you're like, oh, well, I guess I could get used to that. Listen to yourself. Okay, well, I'm sure it only does that once in a while when he's hungry or, listen to yourself, So don't make excuses and don't justify bad behavior, okay? Who remembers this movie? this TV program. Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay, so here it is, folks. How he or she treats you is how he or she feels about you. So don't try to decode it or make excuses. It's simple. If he or she acts like they don't care, they don't care. So when you go home and like, how come they're not texting me back? How come they're not calling me on another date? If they're into you, you'll know it. Okay, so this is the way it is. The good doesn't always last and the bad usually gets worse. The way that you are treated and feel in the dating relationship usually sets the ceiling for your marriage to that person. In other words, your dating experience with a particular partner is as good as it gets. The quality of the dating relationship is often established the potential of the marriage relationship. If you have a great premarital relationship, then you will have a great potential for your marriage. So if you're having a rocky dating thing and you think by marriage it's going to get better, it's not. It's going to get worse. So if you have this really great relationship where you're just really building each other up and you're just so happy together and you feel like $1 million and it's been longer than a week, there's that time thing again, then you can have that in marriage. And I can tell you that because my marriage number 2 has been amazing and wonderful. And I've never been so happy. So, and here's another part. In some relationships, the chemistry develop over time, either simultaneously with the process of getting to know that person or sometime after the relationship has been built. However, if you are dating someone and the chemistry just is not there, you need to take this lack of spark seriously. Okay, you absolutely have to have chemistry. It's important. And if you've dated a few times and it's just not happening, it's not going to happen. Okay? So that's the part where you have to have the heart and the brain both. Because I remember I got into a relationship, it was all heart. It was totally stupid. And then I got into a relationship with all brain. Totally stupid. Okay? When you pull the two together, that's when amazing things can happen. You have to have both for it to actually work. So I fell head over heels in love with Scott immediately. And I would have married him in 2 weeks, except I didn't know yet if he was for me. I had to date him over time to learn about him and to see if we were compatible. I knew the chemistry was there. I knew that I was attracted to him. I knew that we had a ball and that we had so much fun together and that we loved being together and we hated to be separated. But I didn't know him well enough. So that's why I stretched it out for, 9 more months. Broke up with him 4 times because he scared me to death. And I didn't think, he couldn't be this good, so he must be faking it. He's probably hiding some horrible thing, and any day now it's gonna. But I think I was mostly afraid of my feelings that I was so attracted to him. And so that needs to be there, but you've also got to make sure that you know everything that's important to you. So in the dating world, it's also important to be careful of ruts. In order to get to know someone fully, your experiences need to be diverse. So going out to eat and watching a movie reveal only so much. So be creative and enjoy as many different activities as you can. So critical questions you need to be asking yourselves. Do you have similar interests? I mean, on occasion, you're going to want to do things together. So if he throws it, hey, let's go do this. I don't really like that. Why don't we go do this? I don't really like that. You got to have some things you enjoy doing together. You don't have to do everything together, but you've got to have some in common. Okay, that's important. Are your energy levels comparable? Like, hey, I want to go out and play tennis. I want to sit and watch TV. Of course, that's what Scott thought I liked to do because I was really sick when we were dating. It was kind of like that bait and switch thing. So do you build good memories when you are together? or you come home crying all the time. That's probably a bad thing. So how are stresses, frustrations, and obstacles handled? You've got to see them in these circumstances. Okay, we've got the Train the Brain handout. And the next part of this handout is called the Relationship Developmental Model. And I want you to think of it as kind of like if you had your little radio, or your music, and you've got the bass and you're moving it up and down so you get the exact, tone that you like, and treble and stuff. So as you're dating someone, I want you to start to track exactly how you are moving along in each of these different sections. So this is how you are forcing your brain to continue with your heart. So if you've got this amazing attraction, but you don't know them at all, that might be a problem, okay? So these things need to all be moving up simultaneously as you get to know each other, which takes time. Okay, another one to test. How's the conscience? Is their conscience working? Because that's one of the things that you'll find with toxic people is they don't have one. So we can have all aspects of the spectrum on consciences. So we have those people who are extremely on one side, and then we have the other ones who are extremely on the other side. And somewhere in the middle is where it's kind of healthy. And the important thing is that we are equally yoked. That's what we're taught in the church, is that we find a partner who is going to match us, and that we are pulling the load together as partners and companions. That's what we want. That's what we're looking for. Sometimes people will feel like they've got the yoke on their neck and the other one's sitting in the cart. And you don't want that. You want them helping to pull the load of the family, of the responsibilities of life. You want this to be a give and take where you're helping each other through life. So equally yoked. So the question is, how Mormon-y are you? And how Mormon-y are they? Okay? So you go through the list, because we all kind of have these, there's commandments, and there's part of our culture, and there's things that we all do in our Mormonness, so to speak, okay? So you can also kind of write this maybe on the back of your homework and just say, how are they compared to me on this? Like, this is kind of where I'm at, and this is where, here we go. And this is where they're at. And you can kind of compare notes as to see if you're going to get along in the different aspects even of your own religion. So you can imagine how hard it would be if you're marrying different religions, because you have completely different beliefs, and there's a lot of give and take that has to go on. I'm not saying that it's not possible. I'm just saying that it's harder. But I'm saying that even within our own culture, we have variances. And so you want to be comparing notes to see if you're on the same page. So the question that you want to ask yourself is, what do you want? What is it that you want? What is it that you are looking for? Now, at this stage of your life, that now that you have you're older and you've got previous relationships under your belt, and you kind of have a better idea of what you want and what you don't want. I remember when they gave us this assignment when I was a young woman, and I wrote down, it's got to have natural curly hair, and it's got to be blonde, and it's got to have dimples, and it's got to be taller than me. All these things that were just not important, right? Non-consequential. I mean, just not going to make a difference in a relationship. So now we have a little bit better idea, and I want you to, I remember right after my divorce, a friend of mine and we went and stayed at a place over and went to Midway, went to Swiss Days. How many likes to go to Swiss Days? Love it. Okay, so this is a tradition between me and my girlfriend. And we were at this resort, the Zermatt, and we stayed we were in this jacuzzi, and this cute lady was in the jacuzzi with us. And she overheard us talking about my divorce and stuff, and she said, yeah, I'm in a second marriage. And so I started asking her, so, how's it going? Is it successful? Are you happy? Because I'm wondering, is there any hope for me? And she says, what I did was and so she said, someone told me to do this, and so I got a piece of paper and I wrote down all the things that I wanted in the next one. all of the traits and characteristics that I wanted. And she said, some of them were, I absolutely have to have this. This is so important to me that if he's not this, then it's not going to work out. And then the other ones were, it'd be nice, if they did this and this. She's like, I had 60 things. I ended up with 60 things on my list. I didn't think I could come up with that many. And I'm like, 60? Oh my gosh, you're never going to find someone with 60. And so my friend and I, that night we went in, we found some hotel paper, and we started writing down my list. And so this is it. Ended up being 78. And I'm thinking, okay, that's not going to happen. But I remember she said, okay, what you should do next is, because a lot of times we're just, it's really nice to have this perfect person and blah, blah, blah. You need to write down, what is it that you bring to the table? Are you this? Are you going to be bringing something to the relationship for him so that he's not this big prize and you're not, And so I thought, you're right. So I sat down and I wrote down, I couldn't find that. I probably burned it. No, I'm just kidding. I just moved. I'm still finding stuff. So I wrote down this list. But the first thing that we need to decide is, what is it that we want? And there's something magic about writing it down. It's almost like I am telling the angels what to go looking for, because it was like a month later, this person walked into my life. Okay? And so writing it down, it's almost like, okay, angels, I know you're looking for ways to bless me when I'm being righteous and I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to, and I'm trying, and I'm making sacrifices, and I'm not perfect, but I'm trying. So if you're looking for ways to bless me, because we're supposed to ask, and we're supposed to knock for the things that we want, then here's what I want. This is the guy I want. This guy right here. I'm not asking that much. It's only 78. Okay? This is what I want. This is how I want to be blessed. And so it helped me, too, to be clear on what it was that I want. Because a lot of times it's hard for us to be blessed with things if we don't even know. We need to be clear on what we're looking for. And it also helps because if you're in the middle of a dating relationship and then write a list, you're going to write it according to the person you're dating. So when you're in a relationship, you can pull it out and say, does this person qualify? And you read through the list and go, no. And you're like, okay, out you, their door. They're right there. Go. Not going to work out. You're a Utah fan. I'm BYU. Go. So, which actually was on the list. So, important stuff, deep stuff, that matters. So anyway, I'm just saying this is another homework assignment to go home and do. So getting past the pain. In a dating and courtship relationship, I would not have you spend 5 minutes with someone who belittles you, one who is constantly critical of you, one who is cruel at your expense, and may even call it humor. Life is tough enough without the person who is supposed to love you leading the assault on your self-esteem, your sense of dignity, your confidence, and your joy. In this person's care, you deserve to feel physically safe and emotionally secure. Jeffrey R. Holland. And look how he's got his arm around his sweet wife. I just love that. So someday we'll forget the hurt, the reason we cried, and who caused us pain. We will finally realize that the secret of being free is not revenge, but letting things unfold in their own way and own time. After all, what matters is not the first, but the last chapter of our life, which shows how well we ran the race. So smile, laugh, forgive, believe, and love all over again. Okay, this is a letter to the brothers from the sisters. Guess what? I found a book on how to understand women. Aren't you excited? And it's only a few pages. So I'm going to read it so that I can understand myself. Okay, so this is a letter to the brothers from the sisters. Dear brothers, thank you for doing all in your power to curb the natural man. Know that our number one desire is to be number one to you, and the only one, and to make you happy. So when and I'm telling you, this is really one of the needs that women have. And so when a man thinks that he can go off and do his little thing, like a bee from flower to flower, like, what was that play? The King and I. a woman's need is to be number one and only. And so that's why we don't go for the whole porn thing, his mind elsewhere or with other women. We have to be number one and only. We have to be above work. We have to be above basketball, football, everything. We're number one. And when you put us number one, then we put you number one and we make you happy. And when you don't, then we make you miserable. We're really good at it. Yes, we are. So you keep us happy, make us number one, and we will do the same for you, okay? So, letter to the sisters from the brothers. We come with stronger sex drives than you. It's the way God created us so that we would take on responsibility of a wife and family. Please don't shame us for this. We want to make you happy, but we also have needs. Okay, so I know a lot of times women are like, oh, don't say that word sex. Oh, it's just terrible. And they make guys feel bad because this is something that they were born with. They can't help it. It's the way they're born. Okay? It's important. Otherwise, they would never marry us. Okay? Right? They would not give us the time of day. They would not even say hello. They would just be off playing football and eating pizza all the time. But they have been given these drives so that we can have children and continue to have people on this earth. And so that's why it's stronger in them. It has to be. And so we understand that, the natural man is an enemy to God and the natural woman is even scarier. And so we, as people, are trying to become masters of ourselves. That's like our number one responsibility in conquering our natural tendencies to be mean girls or to be demanding and selfish and all about us. It's curbing these natural tendencies and becoming more like Christ. So in the end, we just need to remember it's all about relationships. It is the greatest part and the most enriching part of our lives. When we die, it's the only thing we take with us. And our knowledge. But we have to make sure that we have those relationships. And that's why it's so hard when you go through divorce. You lose a lot of relationships. And it's painful to us. Painful. It's a painful experience. But as years go by, we develop new friendships. And we strengthen the friendships that hung around with us. And that stayed with us. And that were true to us. And didn't turn their backs on us. And I love this quote by Joseph B. Wirthlin. The Lord compensates the faithful for every loss. That which is taken away from those who love the Lord will be added unto them in his own way. While it may not come at the time we desire, the faithful will know that every tear today will eventually be returned 100-fold with tears of rejoicing and gratitude. So, one day you're going to be like, oh, there you are. I did my homework and I filled in the whole thing and you're it. And I'm so excited. This is amazing. There you are. And I'm going to put my glasses back on. So once you have found them and have made a commitment to them, then put everything you have into making them happy. Okay? Remember, they are number one. Above the children, above even the grandchildren. I know this is hard because and above sports and above money and above every other thing. Each other is number one, okay? Put them above everything you have into making them happy. Build them up. Celebrate their wins. Spread wonderful rumors about them. Support their dreams. Encourage them in their hobbies. Give them space to fly. Love them unconditionally, and watch an everlasting love emerge that will take you into the eternities. And the author of that is me. Thank you. I'll give you my autograph at the end. Yes. So go and love someone exactly as they are, and then watch how quickly then they transform into the greatest, truest versions of themselves. When one feels seen and appreciated in their own essence, one is instantly empowered. I just want to end with to give you hope, because I know that a lot of times, man, I know it wasn't fair, because I was only, I think I got married exactly a year after I got divorced, and a lot of my friends, they were, 25 years. There's a lot of people who've been out there a long time dealing with their stuff and healing and stuff, and sometimes you just feel like there are no good people out there, and they're just hard to find. And I don't have any answers of, well, there's this one club on the corner, and that's where all the awesome people are. I mean, there isn't an answer like that. But I know that as long as we are doing what we're supposed to be doing, some of us might not ever find someone. We might be single. Some of us might be choosing to be that way because we just are okay that way, and we're, maybe whatever the circumstances are, but we just need to keep trying, and we don't want to give up, okay? We don't want to give up on ourselves. We don't want to give up on the people in our lives. We want to make sure that we are doing whatever we can to proactively heal ourselves and to find happiness, to activate our hobbies, and to do all the things that we love, and to make our dreams come alive again. A lot of them we had to put aside for raising children and whatever, and so we can pull them out of their dusty shelves and go back to dreaming again and making them come true. So the number one thing that we do is we need to hang on to our testimonies, because this is one of those trials that just knocks you for a loop. And if you can come out still clinging to the gospel, even when some of your LDS community friends don't understand what you're going through, and they're not as supportive as they should be, and sometimes they're even hurtful, and you still have that testimony because you know the gospel is true, then good for you, because the gospel is true. And we know that the Lord will compensate for all of our losses. And that's what we need to cling to, and that we need to do everything in our power to be the faithful daughters and sons of our Heavenly Father, and making ourselves the best people that we can be at all times. And that's my prayer for you, and I hope that you can have a wonderful, lasting relationship like I have found, and if not, then that you will still find that happiness in your life with whatever stage that you're at. And I say this in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.